you should be able to look at your horse and be like, it's, is it getting fitter or is it getting skinnier? Because skinny is not fit.
Horse care can feel like a full-time job. One day your horse is calm and shiny, the next they're pacing, puffy, or blowing through your aids. And you're left wondering if it's ulcers, their joints, or just Mercury in retrograde. Today I'm sitting down with Max Corkran, Olympic-level groom, eventing insider, and the go-to person when top riders need their horses feeling and performing their best. She's managed the care of horses at the biggest competitions in the world, and today she's here for us, the amateurs, the 5 a.m. hay throwers, the after-work riders trying to do right by our horses even when the to-do list never ends. We're talking about joint support, when to start and what actually works, what to do with horses who are too fresh, smart routines for recovery and show prep, and how to keep your horse happy and sound even when you're the entire barn staff. So grab a coffee, a curry comb, or whatever you multitask with. This is your hour with the barn bestie you didn't know you needed.
Dear Horse World, it's Max Corkran.
Max, welcome to the Dear Horse World podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Finally. Yes, finally.
Yeah.
Okay, so for everyone who's listening and watching, Max and I have known each other a long time. She is one of our masterclass instructors on the platform. She is a total legend. And many people in the industry know this. But for everyone who's listening or watching that doesn't know who you are, why don't you share a little bit about who you are?
Who am I? I am a longtime groom, horse advocate, I guess. I am still do some grooming, but now I am an event organizer and amongst other things, I guess. Wear a lot of hats, but that's fun.
You're like, I would say you're an advocate within the industry. You're very much contributing to thought and policy and giving back a lot, specifically in the eventing capacity.
Yes.
Right. Could you share a little bit with everyone some of your career highlights? Because you have worked with and been to the biggest events that the 3-day eventing sport has to offer, really.
Yeah. I mean, I've been pretty lucky that I've been in different capacities to 5 different Olympic Games. I've been to probably that many World Championships and Pan American Games and all the badmintons and Burleys and the only 5-star I haven't been to is Adelaide, which I would love to get to at some point. It just keeps wiggling on the calendar the wrong place. But yeah, pretty lucky. I've gotten to work with some pretty incredible people and have got to travel with some wonderful horses and meet great people along the way. And yeah, I'm just what's next? It's more to come.
Wow,
pretty excited. Yeah, pretty lucky.
Actually, before we dive in, because this is a No Stupid Questions episode. So we have all these really cool questions from our membership that we're very excited that they were going to get to ask Max Corkran directly some questions. But actually, I have a question for you. So of all the events, of all the moments in your career that were on the international stage or in the best of the best competitions, what's your highlight? What's your all-time favorite moment?
My all-time favorite moment. Oof, there are a lot of them. One of my favorite moments for sure was when Karen and little Theodore O'Connor won the Pan American Games, and just being able to stand there while they're playing the national anthem with him. And I have a great picture that Shannon Brinkman took, and I'm sort of standing there, with my hand on my chest, and we're singing the anthem, and he just wrapped his head around me and just started scratching me and nearly knocked me over. And he was just a little tiny thing. And I just loved that moment that he was, he had no idea what he meant to the world. And he was just a dude with an itchy face. It was just such a cool thing. And yeah, that was sort of a moment that I'll remember forever, standing there in the middle of that ring. And the Pan Ams were, they were an advanced competition then. It wasn't like it is now, where it's more of an intermediate level competition. Yeah. So it was a big deal. It was a big deal for he sort of the horse world needed a hero at that time too. We were going through a lot of safety problems and horses and people that were getting badly injured and dying and stuff. And so Teddy was sort of he was a lot more than just who he was. Do you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that was definitely a high point. And I'd say the London Olympics were a pretty good high point as well.
Oh my God, weren't the London Olympics? They were just so epic.
So outstanding. And to be right there in the middle of the city was really cool, because usually the Olympics for equestrian were far away because we need the space and we need the land. And what they did at London was just incredible. It was very special. I mean, literally right downtown. I mean, it would be like, having the Olympics at Central Park. It just was so great. Yeah.
That was the first Olympic Games that I ever covered from a journalist point of view.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, you totally got ruined.
I mean, you did. It's never going to be the same. I was like, oh, they're not all like this. They're not, other ones like Versailles was beautiful and amazing, but London being right there and we were so close to everything is...
No, like I remember that's how the blog ended up, fun fact.
Yeah.
That's how the blog ended up going viral, because I'd only started noelleflight.com like 2-3 months before the London Olympics.
Yes. Wow.
And I didn't have any media accreditation.
Oh, wow.
And all these different people within the horse world all poured in their extra tickets, and everyone gave me a ticket to sit in the stands with a 300mm lens.
Oh my
photos of the event.
That's so cool.
And then after, because I knew some of the riders, we would just go into the, people would just like pour into a pub after.
Right. And the one that was right outside the...
Right.
Exactly.
And so I got all these photos of everyone celebrating with their medals, and that's how the blog like kind of kicked.
That's pretty cool.
Was all this behind. So it's like, that was kind of one of those, there's like one of these moments where you don't realize. I had no idea. I was 25.
Yeah.
I was like, oh no, not all the Olympics are like that.
No.
Like, no. Everyone's like, no, not quite. And again, like nowadays, there's no way that I could have sat in the stands as a media representative and taken photos like that. Just, I blasted them everywhere. They were all over. I sent them to the riders. I was like,
there would be a lot of controversy over that name.
Yeah. Okay, let's dive in. Oh, actually, before we do this, I do want to, this is like the 4th time in the last month that Teddy has come up.
Oh, funny.
So for those who are not, who are listening, and there's lots of listeners of the podcast who are not super entrenched in 3D eventing. So I would love for you to share who Teddy is, because he's kind of a legend.
He is.
And not kind of, he is a legend. Yeah. And when I've now heard him like multiple times, I was that's like the universe saying, okay, let's talk about this horse.
Yeah. Well, he was a pony, for starters.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. How tall was he?
He was 14'1".
That's insane.
He was a tiny little guy. And Karen was teaching the girl, I remember her name is Kristen, but I can't remember her last name. She came to get lessons from Karen one winter and said, I'm having trouble teaching him his flying changes. And so she came and Karen said, give a load of this. What is this? And I said, well, that's your 3 o'clock, sister. She's like, this is like this little round fat chestnut pony rolls in. And Karen said, well, flying changes. He doesn't even know how to canter yet. And yet we'd known that this little horse, I'd sort of seen him. You sort of catch those little ones out of the corner of your eye when you're at an event. It'd already gone through the intermediate level. And she was trying to figure out how to, maybe she could take it advanced and couldn't do its flying changes. So long and long of it, Kristen ends up moving to Australia, and Teddy doesn't have a person. But at that point, they called him Connor. His show name was Theodore O'Connor. He was a thoroughbred, half thoroughbred out of the horse sire's name was Theodore.
So funny that his name was Theodore.
And then, the mother was half Arabian and half Shetland.
What?
So he was, or maybe she was a quarter and half thoroughbred. So he was definitely a mutt of sorts. But so when he was born, he had a temper, and this thing was like, that's the same thing as what made him great is the same thing that killed him in the end. So he would, I guess when he was young, he had this really bad temper. And so the woman that bred him, Win Norman, called him Connor because she reminded him, what's his name? The tennis player.
Oh.
Who had the temper. Jimmy Connor. So that's why he got the name Theodore O'Connor. And so it just sort of rolled. So when he came to us, we thought it was very odd that we couldn't call him Connor, because that was like Karen O'Connor, Connor.
Yeah, that's just...
So he became Teddy, Super Ted. And he came and he hadn't been ridden in a few months, except for by a kid twice a week or something. And he was so fat and his mane was so long. And I said to Karen said, well, I'm supposed to be taking him to Radnor in 2 months. And I was like, you're going to what? And Radnor at that time was long format, steeplechase, roads and tracks,
Oh
the
my
whole
gosh.
thing.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, you are dreaming, sister.
That's not
So this is, and she said, no, you gotta, like, I really think I think he's gonna be cool. I think he's gonna be all right. And so little by little, we sort of, knocked off the dust and pulled his mane. And then as soon as he pulled his mane, it went straight up in the air, which was a little bit his thing anyway. And he was very skeptical of all of us to begin with. And then he, slowly became to trust us. And, but he was very, his flight reactions were really aggressive.
Oh.
Very, very aggressive. So you had to always be almost like 1/2 a step in front of Ted all the time. You put hoof dressing on him and he'd sort of do this and then he'd lean his feet way back and then he'd sort of look at him like, dude, tough oil. And so, you just had to, instead you couldn't like, be like, come on, buddy. You had to be like, well, you're fine, you're good. Like, take him off the crosshays, let him sniff it. Like, you just had to sort of do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then he just knew that. And then one day he was fine with it, but it was, he just always had to stay sort of a 1/2 a step ahead of him all the time, which was not always easy. But anyway, long and long of it, he and Karen became instant best friends. And there's such a great story. He just, went from strength to strength and kept coming up the levels. And suddenly it was getting ready to go to Kentucky. And Karen's like, I think we're going to enter him at Kentucky. I'm like, I think you're nuts. I was like, David, I think she hit her head. But David believed in it too. And we all, in our hearts, we believed in him. We just, as Karen said, she was so worried about on cross country. She was either going to make her career or break her career. She didn't want people to ever think that she was showing this pony what he couldn't do and that what he could do. She knew that he could do it, but if there was, and when you're at a big 5-star like that, there's a lot of luck that goes into it. And a lot of, you don't know if someone's dog's going to get loose. You don't know if it's going to rain. You don't know if it's, someone's going to open an umbrella as you just don't know these things. And she just wanted,
and there's high stakes.
It's really high stakes. Yeah. And so it was very high stress. It was, 14-1. He hadn't had the best lead up to the event. I mean, he did. He just was so cheeky. He just, every now and then at the water jump, he'd be like, no, and then he'd be fine. And Karen would, little bugger. But he was kind of had a sense of humor as he got bigger. But anyway, so Kentucky was amazing. And he was 3rd one year and 5th the next year and went to the Pan Ams and won that. And and then we're hacking to the ring one day and he spun around and nearly dropped me off. And I got off of him to lean him back up and he bolted back to the barn and cut his leg. And that was it. We had to put him down.
Cut his leg?
Yeah. He cut his leg from because he didn't wear back boots ever except for when he went cross country because he would try to kick him off. He was just hated back boots. So he cut everything from like the bone was the only thing holding his leg on. And it was just one of those things you just couldn't do anything about.
Wow.
His flight instinct was so strong. And Karen was on Mandiba, who also had a very strong flight instinct. And the two of them just turned around and bolted and ran. He ran Karen right into the woods. I held on for a bit, but then I was getting drugged and I had to let go. And we're not really sure exactly where he cut his leg, but when he finally stopped, that was it. Yeah, it was a very bad day. It was a very bad day. It's one of those days you will always, everyone says, oh, how was your day? Oh, it was bad. I was like, define bad. Was it bad that you're going to remember it in 3 days? Is it bad that you're going to remember it in 3 months? Or is it bad that you're going to remember it in 3 years?
Well, forever.
And then this one is forever. I still have nightmares of not being able to do, it's my job to protect him and I couldn't that day, so it's one of those things that you just can't take back and you can't change. So you just have to figure out how to deal with it and get on with it, which was tough. And also he was supposed to go to England that summer. He was shortlisted for the Olympic Games in Hong Kong. And it was one of those things like you just really wish the rest of the world got to see him and know him because he was such an anomaly and he was really cool and he was such a dude, and he really loved his people. And so that has still a hard pill to swallow a lot. So it was Other horses will come and go, but there's those ones that sort of sit on that you just what if, and
I think
talk
that's
about.
helpful for people listening because I think we do a lot of that in the horse world.
Yeah.
And because they're in a lot of situations like that, there's such high stakes, high consequences, and you're in and like that's such such a reminder of how quickly things can shift.
So volatile.
And I think that a lot of us do a lot of that. What if I had just done this there, or what if I had taken a different step, or what if I had slowed down, or what if I had turned another direction, or whatever, And
it was, same path we took to the barn, to the ring every day. And come to find out there was a bear that was sitting in the tree at the very top of the hill.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was just, again, I was like, well, I can't blame the dude, but did you have to react like that, Ted? We're like, come on, buddy. It was, and it was just, because it also affected so many people, because so many people loved him and and it was, so it was a lot. Yeah, it was a lot.
I find those horses are the ones like the Hicksteads too. They just really, really, really bright.
Yeah, exactly.
And they are gone.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I remember David talking me through a lot of it because they'd obviously had experienced themselves, that, and he said, Ted, his candle just burned too bright, and so and it was interesting because that year in 2008 we'd had 2 horses killed at Kentucky, we'd had another horse die someplace else, and there was a lot that. A horse with a ruptured aorta, actually from our farm, that had ruptured aorta at Jersey Fresh, and so it was just a bad time and for the sport, and it was interesting. We said it's interesting that he chose to do that at home. That it wasn't in the public. That it was if it was good, again, everything happens for a reason. I don't always know all the reasons why, but that was one of those things that it was trying to make sense of all that. But anyway, Super Ted was amazing, and he had his friends, and he made a lot of people believe, and he was a hero. He definitely wore a cape. He was a good boy.
Something.
Yeah, it was
14-1.
14-1. He was this big. I could lean on him when I was raising him.
Amazing.
Yeah, he's a good boy. Yeah,
that's like small but mighty.
Yeah, and he, Karen didn't know if he was going to be fit enough. What if on the cross country at Kentucky, and he had a huge stride. It took Karen a little bit to figure that out at the higher levels because the stride was a horse stride. Even though he was little, he still had that big step. And so it took probably 6-8 months of really working on it over smaller jumps to understand his step. And so she could be more accurate. And the accuracy is what also, Karen's just a freakishly good rider. If anybody wants to see the magic that can happen, his round at 2007, you can Google it on the Kentucky 3-day event, is the most epic cross-country ride. Karen, she's amazing, but that round is like the round everybody should use it to teach people because it is just incredible. The balance, the pace, the speed, she would see these jumps so far out.
Wow.
And she was incredible. It was just an incredible round. And I still, every time I watch it, I cannot, at the very end, I cry. I watch it so many times and every time I'm like,
So say again, which one?
2007 Kentucky 3-day event, Teddy O'Connor and Karen. And it's on YouTube. You can Google it.
Okay. Yeah, and we'll include the link in the show.
Oh my God, it's so great.
Because I know what I'm watching after.
I know.
After we wrap this.
I know. I know.
Well, just because you and I sitting here crying in the podcast.
Oh my gosh. No, don't make me do it, please.
Okay.
Just get real quiet.
Okay, so we've opened the jar.
Okay.
And now we're going to shake up the jar.
Oh, God.
And I wrote these today. Sometimes they're printed, sometimes they're written. And I've learned as I've done throughout this season that I should read them because I have chicken scratch for writing. I am not a school teacher. I do not have school teacher writing. Okay, first question. What does your care and management routine look like ahead of a show? The weeks leading up, anything special you do to ensure that your horse is feeling the best on the big day?
That's a great question. That is, I like to do like a big calendar for the year and for the month too, but mostly for the year. So then you can figure out if your big show, say, is Kentucky, and then you work your way backwards too. So you make sure that where your competitions are leading up to it, when the vet's going to come out and check on your horse, when your farrier's coming to do this. So it's sort of you make a plan 3 months in advance, plus months in advance to lead up to that very special day, to that very time. Something like Kentucky, or even if it's like the American Vetting Championship, whatever your goal is for that year. And you always want, like, we always made sure our horses got their final shoeing 10 days before the trot up.
Ooh, good point. I love that.
Good, because if for whatever reason, if they got an abscess, usually an abscess will come up 2 to 3 days after they've got their shoes.
Yeah.
And in that 10 days, you have time to fix something. And they also have had their feet trimmed a little bit, and so at 10 days they're comfortable in their feet. And if they got trimmed too short, or whatever it is. So 10 days is sort of that magic number. And then usually usually at the beginning of the season, we'll have the vet come and do a once over on the horses as we're coming through. Just keeping an eye on them. We trotted our horses up after every gallop and after every cross country. The horses always got trotted up, just so we always had a baseline. And we would look at their weight, their feet, their soundness, stiffness, any of that kind of stuff. So we always had a baseline. And then the vet would come. We always had because we had so many horses, we had a standing appointment Tuesdays at 10 o'clock. And so, and we would trot up the horses that we thought maybe needed to be looked at or something for the vet. We'd have a list of, this, we need that, type of thing. And sometimes it was just, hey, how we doing? Do you want a cup of coffee? We'd have a cup of coffee and she'd leave, right? But we had that standing appointment, so in case we needed it, and it was made it really good for her too. So, and then as we would get closer, we would sort of plan if the horses needed their hocks treated or their feet treated or whatever needed to be done. So, and then again, you check their weight as they're getting fitter. They might need more grain. You might need, to adjust something here and there, or, David would look and say, this one needs more food, or, this one is lacking a bit of energy. Let's see what we can do. So then we'd have a conversation and make a plan, and we'd all sort of work together as a team, to do that. So, but as far as like day-to-day stuff, our horses, they got groomed every day. We always made sure that they looked as well as we wanted them to every day. So when it came close to coming to a show, they might need a little tidy up here, tidy up there, but for the most part, they were already ready to go.
Yeah.
For the most part, yeah.
Interesting question. And I don't know I don't even know if this is possible. So this might be like I don't even know if that's possible, Noëlle. If you don't have an actual ability to, because there's all sorts of ways to weigh a horse.
Correct.
Okay. Is there like a DIY way to do it? Without having like a
actual scale?
Yeah.
You can, I think, the most feed companies will give you a measuring tape.
Yes.
And you can measure your horse's belly, and then you sort of, I think they have got some sort of formula. It's like you measure that, and you measure another area, and then you like pinch the fat, and you figure out their body mass index. And I think it's like their height, and then you put it in on how tall and stuff they are. But a lot of times you can just sort of look at them and notice. I mean, I think you should be able to look at your horse and be like, it's, is it getting fitter or is it getting skinnier? Because skinny is not fit. Which is a lot of people are like, oh, he's so fit. I'm like, no, he's thin. There's a difference. There's a difference between, and that gets lost because horses need mass to be able to keep their tendons well, their muscles well, their all that stuff. They need mass to do that. So not heavy mass, but they need something in there for, like humans. You see these marathon runners and mostly the triathletes, like they have mass to them because their body needs something to pull off of without breaking the muscle down.
Yeah.
So they got to have something there.
Yeah. All right. Next question. Oh, I remember when I wrote this one down, I thought, I'm really interested. I want to know what you're going to say to this. Any advice on juggling riding with a professional career that's not with horses?
Ooh.
Do you know anyone who's doing this well?
That is, because a lot of times the way we afford our horses is by having our professional job. There are definitely some people that are, that are doing both. It's not that easy. I guess it's just two parts of this. Like if your horse is at home and you're doing it all yourself, that's one thing because that's really hard. But to make sure you have the right people that your horse is with, if you do have your horse with somebody, that they can keep the horse ticking over for you, it's someone that rides like you ride, which I think is a big thing. It's I think if you're a small petite woman, you need to have the horse with a small petite woman, because if you have it with a man, they ride like a man, which they can't help but doing, and then you try to get on and try to slow that horse down, and you can't.
That's great advice.
Yeah, and so I think it's important and it's got to be a place that you trust and you, and there's got to be some respect for you be the 9 to 5 person that's coming down and trying to do it all, and it's hard because it's not an easy sport, especially eventing. It's not as easy, and you need to be able to do it a lot, to practice, whether, you just got to sort of get good at that. But there definitely are people that do both, and I'm trying to think of people that I know that have.
I know them too, but I can't call them.
Yeah.
But there are, because I just saw, and you can actually, for everyone who's listening or watching, I just saw a recent Chronicle of the Horse article, I think, on someone who's like a doctor or a lawyer, and they just went up, like they had a big like kind of career highlight moment for them, I think, and at advanced, like these, like at some serious, competitions.
Yeah.
I guess if I were in that, like if I was this person asking the question, be like, are there some practical tools that you found if you're, let's say, you can't, your job is not being at the barn 24/7,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Like I think you need to keep very strong and fit. I think a lot of like core strength, because as we all get older, the muscle memory gets weaker. But I think there's definitely something, Pilates, yoga, all those kinds of things that keep your core strength and also your dexterity. The hand-eye coordination type stuff.
That's actually such a good, and there's like amazing, they do this a lot in Formula One. If you ever watch the guys
do with the tennis ball.
Yeah.
They do, even if it's footwork, jumping, like stepping up and down steps or shuffling side to side. And it's a little bit this dexterity, and it's even things like where you sit and you can put your hands under your hips and you lift your one leg and make sure both your seat bones don't move, right? There's things like that even are that are horse-ish related, that you can that you just keep your muscles and your mind going. And even though you're not in the tack, you're as ready as you can be when you get back in the tack.
I love that.
Good.
I think that is that's a huge edge.
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah.
Okay, next.
And there's a lot of specialty people out there that are doing fitness stuff for like people that are 9 to 5 people that are riders, that they'll send you a workout thing, and there's definitely
Aoife Simmons. We have fitness for equestrians on NF Plus, and there are a number of amazing personal trainers out there that are offering. And I do like speaking with Aoife and seeing what he offers and seeing some of the riders that he's worked with. He's worked with Boyd Martin.
Yeah,
there's like the best riders are the ones that take that extra bit of time.
Yeah,
and I think that applies to pro amateurs.
Yes, absolutely.
Really as well. Yeah. Like I think it is a sport that can give you that extra lift. And if you're asking that of your horse, I think it does make a difference when you ask that of yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. Oh, I want to know this. Hoof products for dry versus wet conditions.
Ooh.
We were just talking before we started. Before we pressed record, we were talking about all these different weather conditions.
Hoof. Funny enough, a lot of times with wet conditions, we think that hoof oil is going to soften their feet, but actual oil on their feet helps repel the water.
Oh.
If you think about it, right? Because it's oil, right? Oil and water don't mix. So there's been times when, even if I have a horse that's can tend to have soft feet, if I'm going to ice them, I'll paint their entire feet and the soles of their feet with hoof oil, and then put them in, because it helps repel.
Oh my God, that's a great hack.
Yeah, that's a good hack. The other hacks that I know that we've used before is if you're in a wet area where it's really dewy, you can put some duct tape over your nail holes, so then the wet doesn't get in from the inside. Do you know?
Yeah.
And then good old school like Venice turpentine, and and I know people that have have like a formaldehyde type of mixture concoction that they make to paint their feet. This is for wet conditions.
Yeah.
Paint their feet just to keep them dry. Not every day, like every other day, every 3 days or so. And talk to your farrier. Some horses just have naturally super dry feet anyway, and but then if you got the ones that crumble, and typically if you move to a wet climate, their feet will adapt, but it does take a few years for them to adapt. And same thing if you move to a dry climate, it just takes a couple of years for them to adapt. And then as far as for the drier climates, even there's a very good tea tree oil, hoof oil that's out there, and I can't remember who makes that. I should remember.
Well, and tea tree is naturally antimicrobial, right?
Yes, exactly. So it's always good for all the little, stuff that can get in there. Just, your basic hoof oil. Some people I know sometimes use just like a coconut oil on their feet.
Yeah.
And again,
Really?
yeah, they like literally a jug of coconut oil, and you have a brush with it, and then you can slap it on. Yeah.
That's epic.
Yeah, it's pretty good because it's cheap.
I was gonna say that's cheap. Like if you got a bunch of horses, that's like great.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, if you think about it, it's coconut oil and all those oils that are just they're fairly simple, so they'll soak in pretty nicely too, which is good. Yeah, but again, conversation for your farrier just to make sure.
Yeah, ask
doing
your
the right
farrier.
thing. Yeah, because sometimes you think they're dry, but they're actually wet, and say vice versa. They're like, actually, no, don't mess with it. Everything's great. So yeah.
That's a good, actually. That's a really good tip. I also just love to I've really learned in the last year or two, like to think about your horse from the hoof up.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't before that.
No foot, no horse. Yeah.
Exactly. And I heard that term, but now I feel like I understand it.
Yeah.
Not just, if this is going to make sense to everyone, like I don't just understand it in my mind, I understand it in my body.
Yes.
Like I understand when I can see my horse's feet. I know when they're due. I know if they're unbalanced. I know, you know what I mean? Like you really want to know all about your horse's feet in every possible way.
If you think about, like, if we have like a tiny little imbalance in her shoe and we're walking along, then it hurts her knee, then it hurts her hip, and then it hurts up her back, and then you find yourself walking sideways. And if you think about that with a horse, it's like if you're walking sideways, that's the same thing as a horse leaning on the rein, and then they're landing on the wrong leg too much, and then they're leaning there, and then that's going to get overloaded, and it's where it all starts.
Yeah, and the more you observe the feet, the more everything under saddle actually makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
And but it took me a long time to learn. Like it really took a long time, and I'm just feel like I'm just at the beginning of that. Yeah, but it really does actually start to really like.
One of the best things you can do for horses, like if you can, just take their shoes off for a while.
I love that you just said that.
Barefoot, just recenter, like they will wear their feet down how their body is supposed to be. And it's,
I love that you said that.
I think it's great.
So for someone who's listening that goes, oh, cool, okay, I might do that. So if they're showing through the summer, when would you take them off and when would you put them back on?
I'd take them off when they're having their break, when they're having their holiday.
Okay.
And then leave them off until you need to put them back on.
And what kind of like?
You need a minimum of like 6 weeks really to make any change, can't make any difference. But if you think about it, if you've given your horse a month off, they can walk and hack and do things without their shoes on for a bit.
They can.
I mean, they're horses that, all those good jumping horses, all in. How many 12 clear Olympic show jumping rounds with no shoes ever? It's pretty great. So there's things, obviously if you're living in, like New England, it's quite rocky. You have to be a bit more careful, and they may be a little wincy when they first get their shoes off, but they toughen up. I mean, it's so good for them to get that. And it's a lot cheaper.
Dude, everyone's going to appreciate our reference to hacks and
yes, exactly,
ways to save money. My horse has 2 scars from being in a pasture. Is there anything that will stimulate the hair to grow back in those areas?
Oh, depends on like how old those scars are. Sometimes if they've got that like shiny skin on them, do you know what I mean? Yeah. Then unfortunately they're just going to be scars. But otherwise, there's like the MTG stuff from Shapley's that can sometimes help with hair regrowth. Smells like, as I said, smells like rotten eggs a little bit, but it's got a lot of sulfur in it.
Oh.
So it sort of it does help with sort of stimulate growth. And then there's a product that you can get in the ethnic section. It's called like something grow, and it's got a lot of coconut oil base type of thing, and it's great for, if you got a little rub here and a little rub there and you want the hairs to grow back.
Cool.
And if the scars are old, you're probably not going to get the hair to grow back. Yep. But if it's fairly new, even getting to use like a handheld laser will help like stimulate the blood flow in the area, which can also help with hair growth. But there's no Rogaine, there's none of those things, unfortunately.
I'm pretty sure that person said Rogaine ? And they asked the question. I was like, oh no.
Scars are sexy.
I know. I was like, they're all part of it.
They're part of their story.
God, I have so many scars. It's crazy. Okay. How do you manage a 2-horse barn situation? The separation, the anxiety, the frantic behavior.
Oh, gosh.
Whether we're deep in the Rocky Mountains or down in the heat of Florida, we trust YETI products on this journey of a lifetime. From the Roadie 48 cooler to the YETI mugs you see right here in the studio, YETI coolers and drinkware are built tough, smooth, and ready for anything the horse world has in store for us.
At Connaway & Associates Equine Insurance Services, they understand how special your horse is. That's why I personally chose to work with them to insure my horses before we embarked on this epic journey across the country. I chose them because their agency writes coverage in 48 states. They also work with several A-rated admitted insurance carriers, so you have options and can select the insurance coverage that best suits your own unique needs. Having confidence in my insurance selection allows me peace of mind on this journey. I can focus on my horses and embrace these learning opportunities of a lifetime. Who better to trust with the insurance of your horse than a team of fellow horse people? Connaway & Associates was founded in 1992 by Laura Connaway, herself a Grand Prix show jumping rider. Laura and her experienced team have built a strong reputation as a reliable partner, building relationships through service, trust, and understanding. Explore www.connaway.net or call them for competitive, personalized insurance coverage options from their team of like-minded equine insurance professionals.
I have a whole friend that has 2 horses, and he had to get a donkey or mini. Yeah, because to do that. I think the horses, they're herd animals and they like to be together. That's a hard situation. You need to almost from the very beginning separate them and not ever let them get the attachment, and either, I've done things like, even at a show where I've looked after a horse that is there with its friend, because I freelance now, and there was a horse last year that I was looking after that we get so frantic when his friend left. And so you would do things like you would either take him out of his stall and take him for a walk while the other horse left, and then he never really realized it. Yeah. Or you would like throw a bunch of carrots in the back of the stall. So he was like eating the carrots and doing that. So he didn't notice when the other horse left. But it's a very hard, that's a hard thing to figure out. Sometimes even putting earplugs in them, because then they hear themselves when they're whinnying and screaming. But horses can get really stupid and irrational when they're trying to find their friend.
Yeah.
And it's a real, and they can really injure themselves. So sometimes you have to get a friend for them.
Well,
but you need to break the pattern.
Yeah, because I've learned so much, because it's funny, when I saw that question, I was like, oh, this is going to be fascinating, because I have learned so much about separation anxiety because I'm traveling across the country and 2 horses are now bonded. Yeah. And one thing that I've learned from old cowboys and stuff is like, so if you want 2 horses to bond, throw them in the trailer. Right. Yeah. Feed them together. Yeah. Even feed them directionally.
No, yeah, exactly.
So in stalls, so there's so many things we do, and there's so many things that I realize we do unconsciously, that affirms the bond. Right. That, again, and then other people do that intentionally to build the bond. Right. And so Kathy Barr has an amazing. I'm going to
Yeah.
add to your answer because Kathy Barr has an amazing book on separation anxiety.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool.
And her and I sat down in the studio, and that episode is going to come out in the beginning of season 2.
Okay.
So everyone look out for that episode because we dive deep into separation anxiety.
Yeah, it's
And
real, and it's really real.
And Tick and I were talking, and he actually says that he reckons having 2 horses is the hardest.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 4, easy. But 2 is hard.
Yeah.
2 is hard.
I had no idea when I went. I was like, oh, great. Like 2, they each have each other, blah, blah, blah. And I was so ignorant to the separation anxiety realities. And they are real.
They're very real. Oh, they're so real.
Yeah.
They're so real.
So we feel you. And the person who asked this question, like, it's actually, I think, one of the best myth busters for me was that it's actually not a quick fix.
No, it's not. No, it's something you needed to like a little bit nip it in the bud in the beginning, and then I know people that just like they'll feed them away from each other, and then because food is comforting for them, and then try to
and then also forming, and Kathy talks a lot about this in her book, forming that bond with you.
Yes. Yeah.
So there are lots of things that you can do that your horse then builds that bond.
Right.
And that's social grooming. There's so many things that we can do with our horses that provide that social aspect that they would be getting that second horse. Yeah. Sorry, I want to because it's a hard topic, and I feel like
it's hard.
I've been immersed in that.
Yeah, and you kind of a little bit when you're in the moment, you're like, just stop. And it doesn't help you at all. It just makes everybody mad.
I have literally said, I've literally said to G, because G has a harder time. They're both very bonded, and I actually have dove deep into also the weaning process.
Oh, right.
Because my mare lived with her mother. Like she lived in a herd for most of her life, right?
Yeah.
So I've actually learned the difference in anxious attachment in horses.
Oh, I got you.
Is actually connected to their weaning process.
Yeah,
because G, I think, was weaned a lot earlier.
Okay.
Whereas when you observe horses that actually are able to live with their mother for a lot longer in their life or for their whole life,
right?
Some of the most secure,
really
grounded horses I've ever seen or met in my life.
Yeah. And here we all think, oh, you gotta get them away from their mom. Bizarre.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
That is fascinating.
Okay. How many days off does a high performance horse need? What is the rest protocol for top horses?
Ooh, that's one of my favorite questions.
Hey.
We always gave our horses at least 1 day off a week. High performance, like the top ones. And there's some horses that actually don't do very well with the day off, funny enough. But their day off would be sort of, go for a hack, and not with the rider, with just a fun day, put a working stu, not let them go out and just like wander. Their brains sometimes just can't cope. There's a few sort of thoroughbred type horses that just can't cope with nothing for a day. And they, especially as they're getting fitter, and it makes their next day really bad. They just cannot focus. They just cannot. And it almost is to a detriment to them physically, and mentally to have that. And, but rest is so important for our horses to have the time off and to chuck them out for a bit. And for their more almost mentally as it is physically for them, to just not see someone, just to be dirty, to be, in the field, nobody brushing on them, nobody, just being horses, taking their shoes off. Our high performance horses would always have at least a month off in December or probably November. They would do their big 3-day Fair Hill used to be on Halloween weekend. And so they would have all of November off, and December was just hacking because they'd be moving, right? So they'd sort of be hacking along for a bit and then start gradually doing a bit of flat work, middle of December. But so they'd have four weeks off and then a couple weeks of hacking and then back to doing some flat work and stuff. And
nice.
And then in the summer, it all depended on what the schedule was. Sometimes at Kentucky, the horses would do Kentucky, and a championship was sort of like coming right around the corner. And so they would get probably 2 weeks off then and then bring them back to do some bit of work because they needed to peak again. And then they would get a big break after whatever said championship there would be. So all up, they would get at least 6 weeks, if you put it all together, they would get 6 weeks. And then, depending on the horse, what their schedule was, they'd get 2 months.
Okay.
So a month and a month, or a month and 6 weeks, or 3 weeks and 3 weeks. And
Nice.
just it lets all those things get repaired in their body that we don't see, we can't tell, and just lets, muscles that are sore get better. And again, they don't want to see you. After a 3-day, they're like, oh, I've had enough of you, sister. Like, stop brushing me. Stop making me pretty. Don't change my blanket again. Yeah, they're sort of done with you. And then it gives them time to put weight on if they need to put weight on, or, do all those things and just sort of, again, be dirty, be happy and dirty.
I'm curious about this, because in my riding career, there was some who wanted you to ride or like just move them the Monday after. So if you jumped a Grand Prix or you had something big on Sunday, it was like not okay. The Monday day off was actually not recommended or asked, depending on the barn. They wanted the day off to be Tuesday, because then you come back and you move them a bit on Monday. Not a lot, but you like move them. Maybe you have your hand walking them. And then they'd get all the day off. Their full day off on Tuesday. Yeah. What's your stance on that?
I think it's all personal preference. I think the movement thing, we're lucky with the event horses. Most of them get turned out. Yeah. And so I think the movement part of it is to get, move the lactic acid, to get the stiffness out.
Yes, exactly.
We're lucky our horses will get turned out and move. They'll move themselves, and I would agree with that, once they jump hard and stuff, they do need to move. And, because they, majority of the horses in Wellington say they're in their stalls, 22 to 23 hours a day. Yeah. They don't, especially if they're at a horse show, they, as much, you would want to walk them as much as you can. So we'll say 22 hours a day, they're stuck in their stalls. Yeah. So that movement is critical for them to, recovery is funny. Like we've done so much study about recovery with human athletes, but there's very little research on horse recovery. And depending whether it's the Grand Prix, and I really got thinking about it a lot when my partner Scott jumps Grand Prix, and I'd sort of would help him a bit with his horse that he took to the Olympic Games, and is a bigger horse and quite cold. He was just a little bit lazy off the leg. So if he jumped in a Grand Prix on Thursday and jumped hard to qualify, and then you want him firing on everything he's got for Saturday night. Yeah. What do you do on that Friday? Is there something you can give them? Is there, do you, when they say a human athlete finishes, eat a banana, drink some water, eat a banana, potassium, and there's no protocol for horses, right? Yeah. There's none. There's nothing there. So it's just funny that, when you're done, you walk and you stretch and you do this, and then, but there's no protocol for the horses. So I always got a little bit fascinated by that, and the movement part of it and the recovery part of it. And I find in Europe too, they do these recovery mashes now, where you can, after they've jumped hard or at the end of cross country, you make this like sloppy little, not much. It's sort of like maybe it's total of a scoop of food, but you make it super wet, and it's got a lot of electrolytes and potassium and B12 in the grain that they can so they eat it, they replenish themselves after they've worked hard. And it's also a treat for them. It's got apples and carrots and stuff like that.
Bananas are great for horses.
Bananas are great.
My horses have been eating them like crazy. Yeah. I was looking it up, and the potassium is really, really,
really good.
Supportive.
Banana skins. There's that company, that Be Complete company, that makes really good green banana. There's something about the green banana that's really good for their muscles and their coats and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm actually going to get some of that. Yeah. Green banana.
It's called Be Complete, the letter
Be Complete.
And it's made out of Australia. And they make it, a lot of it is just sort of ground up. I think it's basically ground up green banana skins.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, everybody, that's what I'm going to be buying that tonight.
Yeah. Be Complete.
Okay. Next question. How do I know if my horse is fatigued or just being quote unquote lazy?
Oh, one of the best ways to actually do that is to draw some blood on them. Oh. And see where their blood levels are, because there are some horses that run very low on B12, and just like humans, they're almost like quasi-anemic. And sometimes they just, you don't know, drawing blood on them, you can learn a lot. That's another part of what we used to always do leading up to a competition, to see if there's anything that's depleted on them. because there's horses that are lazy. Like I was saying, that horse Stanley, he was cold. Like you just had to be, come on, Stan, let's go, and there are horses like that. But then there are horses that can fatigue quicker. Their muscles don't do as well. Their enzyme levels get a bit funny, and they know, horses have, lived out on the prairies for, bazillion years, and there are horses that probably know when their muscles are like, hey, I can't go any further. Like, I'm really getting tired now. I don't do well. But drawing blood on them is not very expensive, and you can see what the levels are for your horse.
And you can know your baseline.
You can know your baseline exactly too. Yeah. And even, sometimes horses get fatigued. EPM can make them fatigued. Lyme's disease can make them fatigued. And again, I think sometimes people, a lot of times, may use that as not an excuse, but there's ways to treat that. There's ways we can make them feel better. And again, some horses just run low on B12. Like they're trying to get stronger, and their bodies just won't let them get stronger because they don't produce enough. And if you can help them out, then there's definitely lots of supplements you can use to help them sort of perk them up a bit, especially in the hot weather, right? The hot weather really, really can zap them.
Yeah, I've really found that being here in Florida. The weather really takes a toll on horses, just like it takes a toll on us.
Yeah, we get really tired. And the other thing, sometimes their lungs, they can't get enough oxygen into their lungs too. So yeah, drawing blood's always a good thing.
This isn't a question in the jar, but I know you and I have nerded out on this. Okay. Supplements, no supplements.
Supplements are
too many supplements.
Yeah, so supplements are there to, like a human, like I take a supplement. I have Lyme's disease, so I take a supplement to help me combat that. But that's all I take, because you only need to give your horse what it needs. Like if you feed a really good grain and you've got good hay and stuff like that, you don't need anything else. Like grain, if you think grain is a supplement.
Yes.
Grain is technically a supplement. So every horse is different. So if you have a horse that, and again, as you go up the levels, you deplete more stuff out of them. And so they're going to probably need some supplements to help them keep at the level. Vitamin E, B12, all those types of things. And again, there's so much crap. I mean, nothing is going to make them stand still at X. Nothing. There's no supplement in the world that's going to make them do that, right? I mean, there's people like feeding these supplements to make their horses blacker. I'm like, come on, just, keep them covered don't turn them out at night. It's, and again, it's like, it's supposed to be like an overall wellness thing. Like, I think like that Be Complete thing it's all natural, right?
Yeah.
There's, Succeed is a natural supplement that's supposed to be helping for the overall body health. It's like a multivitamin-y type thing.
Yeah.
Platinum Performance makes great supplements, specific supplements for specific horses that need minute different things. Joint supplements, sure, fine. I think there's some that are definitely better than others. And, I just think that we as horse owners and horse lovers, we want to make them feel really good. And so we end up like, ooh, they'll like this. Ooh, this is super important. And, somebody else has been using it. It works for their horse. So, we jump on the bandwagon as well.
And it's that easy just with one click. I mean, I've been guilty of always supplementing my horses.
Yeah. And it's crazy. And then at the end of the day, you spend all this money and it's just sitting in the bottom of their feed tub because they're like, yep, it's just a bunch of powder and crap. And you don't know what's working either, And that's like when we had our horses on different supplements throughout, when they were competing. But when they went on holiday, we took them off of everything.
Oh,
took them off of all their supplements just for like 4 weeks, unless it was something that was like a medication type of thing. Just took them straight off of it just so they could literally, their livers, everything could just clear right out.
Oh, I love that.
Just sort of be back to normal and introduce them back in as we needed to.
It's also important to mention that supplements, especially horse supplements, but most supplements, even human supplements, are not regulated.
No, there are very few that are regulated. Absolutely.
So I've started really looking at the back of a label of what is actually in it and what does my horse actually need. That one's a real mind bender.
Yeah.
Because when you realize that like anyone can put anything into anything, and then you can put that in your horse's body.
And you can sell it as, like, hey, this is a, be all, great all, jump fast, jump clear. You'll stop pulling on the left rein. You can market whatever you want. There's no, we'll call this one right rein, and we'll call this bucket the left rein. And you can, you can do all those things. So, yeah.
And you know what? What's crazy about the horse world is that people would buy that.
I know, exactly. I know. I know, because we want it so badly. We were so passionate.
Yeah.
Yes.
Amen, dude.
Yeah.
Best way to put it. Okay. Oh, this is the first question that I wrote down today and I loved it. What's the secret to a shiny horse?
Good nutrition. Baseline. Good nutrition. Doesn't need to be a curry comb.
I remember you actually said this to me when we had coffee once. You're like, shine comes from the inside out,
Inside out.
not the outside in.
Yeah. Because you drive down the road and there's retired horses on the side of the road and they're like glistening. They don't get brushed. There's no product on them. They're just like healthy and they're shiny. Yeah. Yeah. Easy.
Super simple, guys.
Super simple. Good nutrition.
I love that.
Base. Yeah.
Okay. That was easy.
No. And a curry comb.
Okay. Actually, I want to add in this because this was one of the best tips that I got and I'm really interested what you think about this. Okay. Meta Larson said to me, if you can do anything, if you're like super strapped for time, if there's anything you can do,
Curry 'em.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of the fascia lines.
Yes.
Because of your horse's fascia.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, I was like, all the years I've been in this industry, she said that, and she was like, "Don't forget that."
Yeah.
And I was like, "That's amazing."
It helps if you think of the fascia lines, and it even starts getting blood into their muscles to warm them up. And then you can also see if they're sore somewhere. You can know, as you're currying. I mean, obviously, some horses are always sore in their back when you're currying them, but you know if it's your horse and you know them, you should always know every inch and ounce of everything on your horse is. You know, like where something might not be quite right, shoulder, back, this, that, the other thing. But yeah, curry.
Such a good tip.
So good.
I love that tip.
Yeah.
What are the most crucial or creative details in a barn? Oh, I love this question. Okay. What are the most crucial or creative details in a barn design that make the daily tasks easier? Layout, water system.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I really selfishly want to know what your answer is to this.
I was at a barn in Europe that actually I love this. They had a hay drop, but the hay drop doesn't go up top; it goes down low. So because hay, when horses are eating out of a hay thing like this, it's not always great for their neck. So it dropped down.
Mm-hmm.
So you're never having hay in the aisles.
Yeah,
you have the hay gets delivered up top. You just don't drop it down. And it does. They have an opening on the very bottom, so you can sweep it out and fill it up. That way, it's sort of about that big, so small enough that you can't get a foot in there, but big enough that you can sweep that stuff out. And I love that because the horses can constantly put their heads down, and it keeps everything in the corner there, which I loved, and they don't strew it all over their stalls. Automatic mortars, they're the good news and the bad news with those is that they do break. Horses will lean on them. That's a mess, and you can't monitor their water intake.
Yeah.
So even just, I always make sure I like to have my water buckets on one side and my feed on the other side, just so they're not making their water buckets all manky and nasty. Or their hay. I know some horses like to dunk hay, but they will figure out how to dunk their hay, but you're keeping the water clean. Doors that slide versus doors that open.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's just a spatial thing. Because doors that open don't sometimes all the way open, and horses can get scared of that, and they'll get their hips stuck, and they can bolt in and out. Windows are very important for horses. Airflow, really important. Keeping the paddock and the barn on one side, and then if you have like cars and stuff on the other, horses, people,
Yeah,
that's a big thing. I think that's a critical thing.
I actually love this. I was over looking at Karen Rolfe's place recently because I've heard about her track system, and she talks a lot about how she basically has a setup where she tries to do it so she doesn't have to put a halter on, actually.
Oh,
I know it's like very parts of the horse world, but I personally was like fascinated by
Right.
this. And what I loved was she said that, and this was a really, really good tip, was she, like, kind of similar to what you just said, like when you come into the property, the front of the property has all the like tractor and machinery or whatever. And then she has the fence, and then all the horse, like the majority of the property is basically for the horses.
Right.
And for horse activities or whatever. And so what she wanted to do was create an environment in which if a horse got out,
Right.
or if a horse was loose or whatever, that there wasn't a place in which they could go and get really badly hurt.
Yep. Yeah.
And so it's like if a horse gets loose or something's happening or whatever, she's not like, oh no.
Yeah.
Like, what if my horse is going to get a foot in the drag or something like that?
Yeah.
They have everything tucked away in a very particular part of the property. And then everything else is horse safe.
Yeah.
And I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah. It's exactly, that's a very good point. It's like you keep horses on one side, equipment on the other, because you need the equipment at a farm, right? You have to have the stuff there, right?
Yeah.
You need the drags, you need this, you need that, but to keep that separated, and then it's also more peaceful. It's prettier to look at. There's all those things too.
All those
but
important
yeah,
Mm.
but yeah, it's just being practical, I guess, too. It's like sometimes you just sort of need things that work for you personally.
What is the best practice for turning out high energy horses during show season?
High energy horse, keeping them going out every day, I think is important, because then it's not like I'm actually out. Trying to keep their routine very similar to every day. I had a couple that were bizarre, and they had to be in the same paddock next to the same horse every day.
Oh, I love that.
And you had to just do that. And it was annoying, but that was the only way they were going to be okay in their turnout. And then sometimes you'd have to, depending on your riding schedule on that day, you might have to cut it short, but they have to get out every day. It can't be like once a week type of thing, because of course it's like a dog being cooped up. You finally let it out to run out. It's like, what? They get so excited, or a small child. They need to keep moving, right? And, monitor them. And a lot of times horses like friends. They want a buddy. They really want to, we've had horses come in that are jumping horses from Europe that haven't been turned out and whatever. And,
oh, yeah.
And, my other half's a very big, as an Australian, a big believer of horses being out in their paddocks more than not, and so, and if they just don't know. And so we have 2 retired horses on the property, and that's their job, is to be the buddies and to teach these horses how to be. And they need a friend. They do much better with a pal.
Isn't that amazing? Because that also gives a job for the retired horse.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is remarkable.
Yeah.
And seniority exists in horse herds.
Yes.
Like it exists in human herds.
Yeah.
Right? And it's important the elders teach us
how to be. Yeah. We've had the one that literally the horse will be cantering around it, and the retired horse will just walk right up ahead, right? Like cut him off. And he's like, look, there's grass. Be one with the grass. Eat. And it's so funny. And they do
Mr. Miyagi.
Yes, exactly. It's like, zen. And they like a friend. They're herd animals. They like a friend. So it's
I love that advice though, because it's like, okay, if you have a horse that's having a hard time in turnout, like the answer is not less.
No,
more.
No, I think it's more, because you can't. Yeah, they got to be balanced.
I love that. Okay, we'll do last question. What is your post-jump school care routine for horses, especially ones that are a little bit more fragile?
First of all, knowing why they're fragile, I think, is really important. Depends on how much they've been jumping. The ones that are super fragile, they will always get iced after they jump or gallop, because I think that's, why not? Right. But I don't think I think a lot of people are like, oh, are you going to ice them more than once? But because at the same time, yes, you want to ice them and you want to look after them, and you the quicker you can get them into the ice, the better. But at the same time, you also need to know if they're not okay. Do you know what I mean? I think it's really important, because sometimes people are like, oh, if he's super fragile, just ice him twice. And then if you ice them twice, then it takes away.
You don't get any
inflammation, right? You get no feedback, and so then you never know. So then maybe you ice them 3 times, and then they're feeling really good, and then they jump really hard again the next time, and then it actually does more damage. Do you know what I mean? Like there can be counteractive part to all of
yeah,
that.
the answer is not like more.
More is not always more, yeah. So, I mean, yes, they should get iced. And again, 1,000 different ways to ice these horses, but, and movement, got to move them, move too. But the quicker you can get them those ice on their legs, the better it is for them. And again, if it's a foot, if it's a fetlock, if it's high suspensory, make sure that's the part that's getting iced. And then, have a look at them later, and just, management, good feet, good shoeing, good, warm up, good cool down. Warm up is a really, sometimes you watch these jumper guys, they get on, They do one lap of trot and they
Oh,
just
I
go
know.
right to canter. I'm thinking,
I know.
walking
I know.
is so
Exactly what you
critical
mean.
for them, and moving and all the walking is so good.
I had a great horseman say that we actually, almost everyone doesn't walk enough.
No, absolutely.
And if you think you do walk enough, he's
Walk
like,
some more.
you're not walking enough.
No, exactly.
And I'm guilty of it. We're all guilty of it. And I think the more instant gratification that we look for as humans, I think the worse
Absolutely,
horsemen
the worst
we
thing in the
become.
whole world. I say that all the time. Instant gratification horses do not mix. They just, you cannot, it's supplements. You cannot fix it now. Like, it is a process. It is, it's a long-term process of listening to your horses, looking at them, knowing and doing the whole thing. And then, it's not instant. God, I wish it was. Wouldn't that be fun?
So I think I love that you brought up walking.
Yeah.
Because I actually think walking before and walking after
Yeah.
is as important
Yeah.
as icing, as important as all the fancy machines that you're going to get.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. I love, like, if there were one other thing that you could, one thing that you would put on a farm is a walker. I think the walkers are so great to be able to put a horse on a walker, especially the older ones. They can move before you ride them. They can move if they are, if you have limited turnout or something, they can always get moving. And then they move themselves. They're like, the treadmills are one thing, but the treadmill, when it moves, it basically moves their front feet. They moves their feet back. So they're not actually getting the whole natural step of pulling themselves.
Yes.
And also on a walker, they can put their heads down. They can turn right. They can turn left. They can stretch over their backs and do all those things and not just sort of be like, bored to death too, right? On those things. Oh God, I know.
Treadmill. Can't imagine.
They're great for rehab. They are rehab. I will say they are great for rehab, but
and they have a place.
They do definitely have a place.
Aqua treads, treadmills, they have a tremendous place.
Yeah.
I mean, they really, really do.
Yeah.
But I love that walking.
That's how they were formed, is on the plains and
being loose.
Just movement, constant movement. Yeah.
I actually, the more I learn, the more I realize that movement with horses is like
critical.
Such a preventative.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. But not active, like passive movement is remarkably important.
Yeah.
And the more we keep them in stalls and the more we limit their movement, the more prone they are to injury, the more prone they are to behavior, the more prone they are to
just think about even letting them. You watch a Carl Hester or any of those guys, Stefan Peters, when you watch them school their horses, those horses are collected and then they drop the reins and they let them trot along in their movement, doing their movement. Then they collect them again and then they let them go and they do these big, they sort of stretch and walk and do their things. And those horses have such long careers and longevity, especially as dressage horses. They're a little bit more protected than an event horse or a jumping horse. They're stuck in a 20/60, always making a turn, right? They're always on a turn. They're never on a straight line, are they?
So true.
Turning. And so, yeah, it's crazy.
Well, and Carl Hester's horses, they get turned out. It gets turned out in pairs.
Yeah. And I remember at the Tokyo Olympics, Charlotte Desjardins' horse and Carl Hester's horse were at the trot up and the two of them were scratching each other. And I thought, very rarely do you see two dressage horses that A, are allowed to be near each other, B, would actually touch each other, C, are actually grooming each other, and the riders and grooms are laughing and loving every single minute of it, and everybody's happy. It was it was so fun to see. It was so cool.
Yeah, and if you don't believe us, guys, we did an awesome stabling tour with Carl Hester.
Oh, did you?
And you can see, cool. And he goes, and like,
they go hacking, and
he was like, if anyone has, he starts the video basically saying like, so if everyone's ever asked me if I turn my horses out, yes, I do. And they go out in pairs and then look behind me. And they were, like when we were there filming, they were out in these huge multi-acre pastures with their, like all their reining gear on. Reining a little bit. But then out in pairs together, like, I was like, oh, this is how this is how it should be.
Yeah. Good lives.
Good lives.
Yeah.
Okay, so to conclude every episode, I always ask these 5 rapid fire.
Oh, God. Okay.
I'm so excited. Are you ready?
Gotta have a sip of water first. Hold on. So I try to be smart and witty, and I'm really not. So there we go.
Yes, you totally are.
Okay.
Okay. If you could read one book to the horse world, what would it be?
If I could read one book to the horse world,
Yeah.
The Phantom Tollbooth.
What's that? I'd have never heard of it.
It's a great book about adventure and learning things and being part of things. Yes.
Amazing.
Yes.
That's the first. No one's ever brought that one.
I love the Phantom Tollbooth.
Who is the most iconic horse in history?
Most iconic horse in history would be probably a horse, maybe Big Ben. Because that horse won everything. Everybody knew who again, I'm dating myself, but I think everybody knows who Big Ben was.
Yeah.
He was a legend, I would say.
Horse?
I know, amazing Canadian horse. Amazing Canadian rider.
Yeah.
I mean, Big Ben was sort of the thing, the guy.
He was pretty iconic.
Yeah.
Most undervalued skill as a rider?
Patience. So true. Patience. It's the hardest thing to know, but it's the most important.
Totally is.
Yeah.
Who is the greatest horseman or horsewoman in history?
Wow.
Yeah, not a hard question at all.
There's a myriad list of people. Wow.
In your opinion?
Oh God, I can't even.
Who was the first person that came to your mind?
Well, Karen and David, because I worked for them, and I think they're both incredible horsemen. David's a very, very good horseman. Karen is too, but in a different way. David has studied it a lot more. He's been a real student of the sport to study the horsemanship side of it, and understanding. I mean, there's other people that you think of horsemen, but it's a little gimmicky and stuff like that you like. Yeah, it's good, but then there's other people from way back when. I worked. One of the guys I worked for had Joey Darby had kept a horse with us, and he taught me so much about a little bit of horsemanship and the special ones, and so I see him as a horseman too. And some of these old time eventing legends, yes, they were tough on horses, but at the same time they were also horsemen. So it can be a bit of a controversial answer, in some ways, but God, even like Jack LeGoff was an incredible horseman, but he was, again, tough on his riders, tough on his horses. He asked a lot of them, but was also very, that was a guy that could put his hands on any horse's leg blindfolded and could tell you exactly what horse it was because he knew what every single horse's legs felt like.
Wow.
He was incredible, and he just taught that sort of side of it, of the horsemanship side of that, and understanding that long format. You just got such bad horsemanship. But so anyway, this is supposed to be rapid fire, and I have no answer to this question, so I'm trying to think of the right people. I don't know. What's the most common answer on this one?
There isn't.
Okay. No.
The one that I loved, I think it was David's answer, because I agree, David is, and I just want to add, I do think David is he's like a student.
He's such a student of the sport, of equestrian.
Of equestrianism as a body of knowledge.
Yeah.
And it is really, his podcast is one of my favorites. It's like I learn something from every time I sit with him. I learn something. But I think his the one that I found the most fascinating answer to this question is we'll never know.
Yeah, actually, that is very true. We will never know. Yeah, I remember years ago, David asked, there was a group of sort of that younger generation of, when Hannah Subernat and Lauren and Tick actually was there because he worked Karen and David's with us, and sort of that generation, Bobby Meyerhoff, Libby Loicano, Alexa Perkeel, there was sort of that, we had probably about between 18 and 25-year-olds riding with us at the time and, working for us and stuff. And he's like, here's a question for y'all. And he's like, what? And he said, if you wanted to be remembered as a good competitor, did you want to be known as being successful or a good horseman? And everyone's like, oh, successful. And I remember there was two of them that sort of sat back and thought, they're like, well, if you're a good horseman, you're going to be successful. And David's like, boom, that's the answer. And it was just such an interesting thing because, the quick off the cuff thing was like, oh, you want to be successful. You want to be remembered for being successful. And so it was just kind of funny to sit and watch those guys sort of think it through and have the conversation with each other. It was one of those, dinner party conversations, extra glass of wine, pontificating. But it was really
That is a David
Yeah, it's
question.
definitely a David question. It was and just watching the way people reacted to the answer, and then, oh yeah, no, I take it back. I take it back. It's really funny. So yeah, but we don't know you still don't know. And yeah, and I bet the greatest horsemen out there are people we don't even know.
Well, that's it.
Yeah,
That is what that question, that's what the answer means,
yeah,
is that the truly, truly great ones
yeah,
are the ones that lived their lives,
Yeah.
did their things, and never stepped into
Yeah,
the spotlight. Just like, that old saying, like the best course you'll ever jump, the best test you'll ever ride, the best cow you'll ever cut
won't be in public.
won't be in public.
No,
It'll be
Exactly.
like somewhere, someday,
I know.
no one's watching.
Exactly.
It's just for you.
Yeah, exactly. It's just for you, and that sometimes has to be enough. Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. It's just
That's
true.
scheming.
Yeah.
That does have
sometimes
to be
enough. Sometimes it just has to be enough. Yeah.
Okay, last question.
Okay.
God, that's so good. Mare stallions or geldings?
Oh, a mare. Yes, I love a good mare. Oh my God, I love a good mare. The good mares are so good, and
Why?
they're so they are they fight for you. They have most of them have really good self-preservation. They will look after you. If you're friends with them, they are friends with you, and they will look after you. And they dig in when push comes to shove, and you need them to dig in a little bit harder. They will dig in a little bit harder for you. They definitely will. And they're also, I find most mares are the good mares are a lot more self-confident, and they don't get attached like a gelding will. Geldings get a bit emotional. And I think a good mare just is very independent. They appreciate the friendship, but they don't need it. So, yeah, good mare is so good. A good mare.
Max, I just so grateful that you coming on the podcast.
This is fun. Finally, we got this done. Took a while, but it's all good. Yeah.
Today's episode is brought to you by Connaway and Associates Equine Insurance Services. The friendly and knowledgeable team at Connaway and Associates brings together more than 30 years of experience to offer a wide range of insurance services, including horse insurance, farm insurance, and liability insurance. Visit www.connaway.net to explore options or get in touch today.
Thank you, YETI, for supporting us on this journey of a lifetime as we traverse the heart of the horse world.